We've decided to record the session here tonight. So we are going to do the subject of zeal. I've got the teachings on watchfulness is already on the web, but if you need a copy of last week's one that I read it this Shabbat that's gone past, just bring your stick. I'll copy it for you on your stick. Okay. So zeal for divine service, and we do this because we are going to look at our characters, our personal characters. So in order to do the divine service, to do the service of God, we have to look at ourselves. That is what Teshuvah is. Teshuvah is to understand where do we have to repent, where do we have to repent from. So we are doing some looking into the mirror in this couple of weeks before Yom Kippur. So in the last teachings we looked at Torah leads to watchfulness, and watchfulness leads to zeal. Now the only way that I can start this tonight looking at zeal is to look at this specific picture of a man sinking in water. So where do we find ourselves? We actually find ourselves in midst of a big ocean, and we are paddling water all the time. What happens if you stop paddling? You sink. But what happens if you keep on paddling? But eventually you get tired and you sink. Okay. So paddling in the water is not the answer. Stop paddling is not the answer. So what should you do? Well, paddling with a view, paddling going somewhere, that is what you have to do. So just staying afloat in the water is not doing anything. You have to paddle, you have to come up, and you have to actually find a direction going to that. And this is what I want to relate, and what the path of the just, the book, relates to zeal. Zeal just by itself is nothing. So the next slide says, zeal without knowledge is fire without light. Think about it. Fire without light. It's actually impossible. But that is what zeal is. Zeal is something that have no light if it's got no knowledge. But on the other sense, through zeal, knowledge is acquired. So in the one sense, we're saying you need zeal to get knowledge. In the other sense, we say, well, you can have zeal, but you have no knowledge. You have nothing. So the only way that I can explain that is a chicken and egg situation. So which one comes first? Well, it's this two sides of a coin. The one cannot exist without the other. You need the knowledge, you need the zeal. And you'll find that you start with knowledge, you'll get the zeal. If you start with zeal, you'll get the knowledge. But you cannot have the one without the other. Now, what we see in a lot of situations today, that people have got zeal, they have no knowledge, and therefore they abide themselves, as the Word of God tells us, they abide to human-made rules and not to the rules of God. Why? Because they've got zeal without knowledge. That's basically what's happening today. So what is zeal? You know, for an Afrikaans guy like me, I go to the dictionary to tell me exactly what is zeal. Now, zeal is great energy or enthusiasm in pursuit of a cause or an objective. So can you see what I explained, that paddling in the water is not the answer, but paddling towards an objective, that is the answer. So zeal is exactly the same. It is a great energy in pursuit of a cause or an objective. Now, think to yourself and think about all the places that you have been and the interaction with people, and they've got so much zeal, and they speak about the Word of God, and you say, okay, this is absolute without knowledge. And I think you've experienced some of it today, speaking to people, and you realize, but it cannot work like this. You know, the law of God cannot just be done away with. There is some structures that we still have to, you know, we live in a country and we abide by law. Therefore, the kingdom of God still needs to abide by constitution, by a law. So, through zeal, knowledge is acquired. So we have to say, okay, zeal, the objective for zeal is to gain the knowledge. When you gain the knowledge, you will gain zeal. So how do you explain it? It's with a spiral. You get a small spiral and you actually start spiraling up. The more zeal, the more knowledge. The more knowledge, the more zeal. And so you're spiraling up and up. But the spiral seems sometimes to us as if we're running in circles. And that's what happens in most of our lives, is that, God, why is it happening? It's so mundane, but it seems to be mundane because we're running in circles, but actually God is uplifting us slowly, slowly, slowly. We can't just do it in one shot. There's no point in it, because we'll lose it as quick as we gain it. We will lose it as quick. So paddling in the water is exactly the same here. Turn left, turn right, both directions you are lost. Okay. So through the lack of zeal, knowledge is lost. Now you could read the Torah and you could read the Bible 10 times. Stop for 10 years. What will happen with that knowledge? It will disappear. It is just, so how do you make it permanent? By constantly learning it or doing it. So we can say, for instance, how to pray. Okay, so this is the prayer that we've received, and let's pray this prayer. So we can learn the prayer and never pray. Will we recall the prayer? Or if we every morning by habit start praying exactly the same prayer, do you think we will remember that prayer even after 10 years? Okay. Who can tell me the Lord's Prayer? All of us can. Why? Because we've prayed it how many times? So it is now permanent. So what we are saying is that zeal is not just energy. It is energy that has a direction. It's got an objective. And the objective then is to gain this knowledge and to make it permanent. It's a very, very narrow path. You stop, you sink. You paddle without any direction, you get tired, you sink. So the path of the just says that even though the lazy person is not doing evil actively, so there are people saying, well, I'm a good guy. I don't sit in pubs and I'm not evil. I'm not quite active. But he says, nevertheless, he brings evil on himself through his very inactivity. So, okay, I stopped pedaling in the water. So what's so wrong with that? Well, you're going to sink. Because there is no other way to survive. You have to pedal. So this is the same in today's world. You can say that, okay, I don't really, I don't serve God with zeal, and I don't believe in the devil, I don't believe in God, just leave me alone. I can't. You cannot. Because if you do that, you are going to sink. So the default is, if you do nothing, if you don't serve God properly, you are going to go to the evil inclination. So there is only one way forward, is to serve God. It's a very, very narrow road. It's a very, very narrow path. It is proper first to reach shelimot, a wholeness in watchfulness, namely contemplating and watching over his deeds and ways, and only afterwards to attain shelimot and zeal, which is the wholeness in zeal, whose matter is overcoming the natural laziness in order to fulfill the mitzvah properly. Now, is a man born naturally more lazy or more with zeal? Well, actually, neither. But just do nothing, you become lazy. By doing nothing, you become lazy. And, you know, so many teachers has always said to me that the more you do, the more you find time to do it and the more you want to do. But the less you do, the less you want to do. And suddenly the less you can do. Oh, yeah. There's always excuses. So the natural reaction, just by doing nothing, you become lazy. Now, what we're saying in the wholeness of watchfulness. So you can gain, for instance, let's say you are a farmer. Today you are going to go out and you pick your fruit and your vegetables and you come back and you put it in the kitchen. And then you do nothing with it. What will happen with the fruit? What will happen? So by just leaving it, so you can serve God for 10 years and serve Him with zeal and passion, and then you stop. What will happen with everything that you've done? Will it carry you through tough times? So in actual fact, there is no such thing as stop serving God. You know, I'm going to relax a little bit. I'm not going to go to the shul anymore. I'm going to just relax. You know, cut my prayers and just be on a holiday. If you do that, you have fruit, you have what you have gained will go rotten. And therefore, we have to be watchful. If we gain something, if we gain the fruit of the Ruach, patience. Do you have patience forever when you gained it? And we spoke about it previously. Well, it depends how many cars drive in front of you. Today, you can say, I have patience. But how many cars drove in front of you? 2. What if there was 10? Would you still have patience? And now there's an accident and people are screaming. So do you have patience or do you have certain levels of patience? You have certain levels of anger. So we can't say we just have it. But don't work on love in the marriage. What will happen to that love? It will just disappear. It will fall apart by itself. In natural fact, your inactivity will just make it disappear, will make it fall apart. So watchfulness revolves around a negative mitzvot. Okay, so God tells us, you shall not commit murder. Okay, let's not take murder because not all of it. Well, let's take murder. Let's take murder because do we murder? Think about it. We do commit murder. Because if you speak with your mouth against people and you kill their reputation, you kill them, you are actually committing murder. It might not be a physical murder, but what you have spoken about your mouth, you are like a murderer. So we have to guard ourselves, even if our emotions are flared and we are angry and we rightfully think that we deserve righteousness because he has stolen from me, and you want to say a couple of things, you have to be very, very watchful first not to do it. So it's watchfulness around a negative commandment, you shall not. But there is another commandment that says you shall love God. Is that a negative or positive commandment? It's a positive commandment. It's positive to love God. So shall you be watchful to love God? No, you have to have now energy. You have to put things in place to love God. If you love God, you will keep His commandments. So therefore, you start doing. You need energy, you need zeal to do to love God. So watchfulness, what we did last week, was more to look after you shall not. Make sure that you don't sink. But zeal is now, we need to do things so that we can go into the direction, so that we can fulfill an object, we can fulfill something that is positive. Now Psalms 34 verse 15 says, this is as written, turn from evil and do good. So turn from evil means be watchful. There's evil in the road, I'm going to turn away from it. But now do good, run after doing good. That's what the Psalms tells us. So he breaks both these paths. In watchfulness is for turning away from evil, but zeal is to do good. So you actively have to think, how can I serve God? How can I do good? How can I change? Now, books come out. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That wants to work on the traits of people so that they can be proactive. You know, you get proactive. So, being proactive, that is what zeal is. Zeal is that energy to be proactive. Start doing things before it hits emergencies. So that is the watchfulness again versus the zeal. So the nature of a man is to run after what is good, is to run after what is good and pleasurable to him. I never saw anybody committing sin that was not nice, that I didn't like doing. And every time they committed the sin, they said, you know, how awful. Every time they came out of a place, you know, late on a Shabbat evening or everywhere they came in and they said, oh, what a terrible time we had last night. Natural fact, I don't hear anybody. They always brag about their sins and what they did last night because it was pleasurable. So the inclination of man is to run after what is good for them and what is nice, and therefore we call it today entertainment. They run after entertainment because it's pleasurable. Nice food, the drink, you know, any type of entertainment. But not just watching videos or films or Hollywood, but it's to eat together and have a good time and drinking and dancing. So everything revolves around feeling good and what is pleasurable to him. So this natural man, you don't have to do it, it's there. You don't have to work very hard on it, it's there. Okay. So if the natural man then runs after what is nice to him, why doesn't he run after the commandments of God? Because isn't the commandments of God also pleasurable to do? Well, that's a good question. Or, you know, serving God, coming on a Shabbat and serve God and pray and so on. Isn't it supposed to be pleasurable? Well, if it's pleasurable, why aren't we so happy to do it? Why is there always it's Shabbat. And, not that it's in everybody's life, but anything, you know, any commandment, clean food, kosher food. Oh, it's such a terrible burden. But it is serving God and should be pleasurable. Why is it not pleasurable? Well, the answer is that the evil inclination is always active within you, this flesh part of you. And it entices the human to pull them to a place where it lies to him and tells him, you know, tonight, Shabbat, you can pray on Shabbat and you can have a nice Shabbat dinner, but it's not going to be any close to what your friends are going to do tonight. So immediately you're torn between two. You know, they are going to go out tonight and they're going to have such a good time, but why spending time studying the Torah, praying, having a good time with the family? Why isn't that pleasurable? Because the evil inclination is lying to you. So therefore, if you accept that lie, zeal goes out the door. Zeal goes out the door, but you have to be very watchful to listen to this voice speaking. You say, hey, what is this voice speaking to me? It's watchfulness. And therefore you suddenly, zeal kicks in and you say, I'm going to override this. Because my evil inclination is saying this, I'm going to make an extra special Shabbat dinner. And I'm going to specifically, you make a point of it to make it now a positive. For just like the evil inclination causes and strives with its strategy to cast man into sin. So the evil inclination is to make you sin. It also wants and strives to prevent you from doing anything that's got to do with God. Praying, studying the Torah, you know, having family time. anything that is positive. So so it's not just pulling you away from what is godly, but after pulling you away is to cast you into the sin. Therefore, you have to work against this pulling of the evil inclination to serve God. So if you don't do anything, what happens? Automatically you've been pulled into. So with zeal comes action. If you have zeal, if you have energy, if you sit long enough, there's always, there's cartoons and there's jokes that I can't remember how it goes, but something, I feel like working now, but I'll sit for half an hour until that feeling goes past. You know that feeling? So I feel like very zealous to go work. Well, sit for half an hour, that feeling will also pass. That's exactly it. You've got zeal, you've got the energy to do it, but if you don't act upon it, that will pass. It requires great cleverness and foresight to grasp the mitzvot, to acquire them and not to lose them. You see, the thing is that the evil inclination lies so much to us, saying, well, let's talk about prayer. Prayer takes time, it's a lot of words, and it's so mundane. I'll pray while I'm in the car. You do that as well, but that's not your time spent with God, because you've got a lot of distractions from cars, and so you need some time with God. But if you don't understand spending time with God is going to mean to you, if you don't understand what it means to study the Torah and what you are going to get out of the Torah, and if you don't understand this, if you don't grasp this, what they call this mitzvah, you are going to lose it automatically. So by doing some of the things and not understanding it, not understanding what is the value of prayer, what is the value of spending quality time, you are going to lose it. Now let's look at marriages today. Why is it that in most marriage counseling, the counselor would say, I think you and your wife need to spend some time together. You have to listen, you have to talk to each other. Amen? But isn't that supposed to be quite normal to do that? Why do you have to be reminded to do that? Why do you suddenly have to be told by a counselor how valuable it is to spend some quality time with your wife and to talk to each other? Why do they have to suddenly explain to you the value of it? Why do they have to explain the value in spending time with your kids when they are small? Isn't that just normal? We should know this. But we have lost that knowledge. We have lost the importance of that time that we spend with each other. So there's a lot of things that, even if you have the energy, if you don't do that action, if you don't spend time in that action, you just lose it. Then you basically lose the whole idea, the whole positiveness of what we are doing. For instance, for many years we kept, what do we call it, Passover? In Afrikaans? No, not the Afrikaans one for Passover? Paasfees. Okay, Paasfees. And it was all about a bunny laying white eggs, and the eggs was chocolate. It was Easter, that's the word I'm looking for, Easter. Nobody asked the reason why bunnies lay eggs. Nobody asked why bunnies suddenly appear during the time of Easter. Nobody asked, where does Easter come from? Why? Because of the passivity of people, this knowledge wasn't stolen. It was just lost. It just disappeared. Just by not doing anything. But not even doing anything, but not fighting for the truth. Not holding the truth. Not holding the truth high, truth will go lost. So even if we have the truth, we have to hold it up high. We have to be zealous. We have to make sure and be watchful that this truth does not slowly disappear and become mundane. We have to be watchful to understand what is so important about this truth. What is so important about what we are doing? What is so important by keeping Shabbat? What is so important by blowing a shofar? By doing certain, it must not become mundane. We always need to remember the importance of it. If a man weakens and is lazy, not strengthening himself to pursue them and to hold on to them, will certainly remain shaken out and empty of them. So if you do not hold on to the truth, you have to hold on to the truth with everything that, if you're not, it's going to shake out. You're going to lose it. People will start asking you questions and you would, yeah, but why are you doing this? Once a couple of years ago, I still remembered what was the importance of Pesach. What was the question? I wonder how many people you can ask today that will tell you the 10 plagues. What is the 10 plagues? Oh, the firstborns died. That's the first thing. And there was blood and there was frogs and, okay. You ask them a story about Noah, the animals, the amount of animals, and they'll give you an answer. But today even it's becoming worse, because I asked persons the other day about the story of Noah, believe it or not, and they said, Noah, never heard of him. It's that bad. It's really that bad. And then it's not an atheist, it's people believing. They believe, but they don't read the Bible, but they don't have to, because people speak over the pulpits and they have videos to watch, and they've got now Hollywood movies, the book of this and the book of that, and so on. And did you see that story of Noah? Yes, it's so far removed from the Bible, but that's how they know the Bible these days. So Nehemiah 5:13 says, I also shook out my garment and said, so shall God shake out any man who does not fulfill this matter. From his house and from his toil, so shall he be shaken out and empty. So what we find is that zeal means you have to do something. You have to put that energy into action. If you don't, God will shake. God will shake your life, that what you ever have, you will lose. Now, why is that important? Why is it even relevant to say that God will shake out so that what you have, you will lose? Because that's the only time that a man will take cognizance. Otherwise, he will not. He will not remember. And to illustrate this man, he went to the bank, quite a very rich man, he went to the bank and he drew $10,000. $1 bills, $10 bills, $100 bills. And he had a bag with him, and he walked down the street and he saw this big building for sale, and he said, well, I want to look at this building. So he went through this building, he saw all the floors empty. He says, well, I want to go into the top floor. So he went right on top of the roof, and he looked out, and he said, wow, what a fantastic view. And he just said to the guy, just leave me for a while here. Let me just enjoy this view. And the door closed behind him, and there was no handle, and there was no way to open the door. So he was stuck, and he said, well, I'll phone somebody. Oh, I don't have my phone with me. He's just got the bag of money. So what is he going to do? How is he going to get, he doesn't even have water with him. So he starts shouting from the top to the people. Nobody hears him. So eventually, after being so desperate, he starts throwing out $1 bills. So the dollar bills come down and they fall on the ground, and people walk past and they see, wow, money. And they pick it up and put it in their pocket and they keep on walking. And his $1 bills is finished, so he started throwing out $10 bills, and that went finished. He started throwing out the $100 bills, and everybody was picking up the money and putting it in their pocket, and they left. So he says, what now? So he saw a stone there, and he took the stone, he threw it from the top, and it hit the guy in the head. And when it hit the guy in the head, he said, what? So sometimes the good things in your path, you take it so for granted you don't even look up. But let something tragic happen to you. The first thing that happens, you look up and you say, oh my God. Then you would see him shouting from the top and saying, you have to wake up. You see what has been stolen from you. You have lost your watchfulness. So sometimes by being shaken in your life, God gets you to start looking up. And that's why it's in a human trait that it's almost by default that if you don't do anything, you go into a bad period or something bad in your life, because that is God's way of waking you up. But the tragedy is people drown and they don't even realize that they are drowning. They just go to sleep. But he who wants to merit to the service of the Creator must strengthen himself against his own nature, mustering strength and zeal. So man's nature is a heavy weight. And we know that Paul says, what I want to do, I don't do. What I want to do, I don't do. What I don't want to do, I do. But when I do it, it's not me, but it's the sin in me, and you keep on reading and you go, okay, I don't really understand what he's saying. I'm quite confused, but I know exactly what he means, because that's the way I feel. It's the heaviness of this struggle between the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara, the good inclination and the evil inclination. It's this heavy burden. And to overcome this evil inclination is not something that you just pray for. You come to the front and people lay hands on you and you pray, and you go to organizations and to therapists and various things. You get your answers there. No. You can be provided guidance, you can provide it knowledge, but you still have to use it. You still have to implement it. So even if you have God in your life, you still have to serve Him. You have to pray. You have to be actively involved. Now Luke 13:24 tells us, exert yourselves vigorously to get in through the narrow door, because many, I tell you, will seek to get in, but will not be able to. So you have to do your bit. God has given you ability, you have to do it. And we'll speak a bit later about our effort versus what God provides for us. Well, if he leaves himself in the hands of his natural heaviness, depression is today one of the biggest, probably sickness, depression. Everybody's depressed. A certainty that he will not succeed. So it is just that heavy weight. If you leave it, it will drag you down. So you have to fight actively against it. Why am I feeling so negative? What is, and you have to look, but God has given us food, and I still have fuel for my car, and my car is still driving. Okay, it might be old, it might have scratches on it, but so what? It still drives. You don't have what others have, but that doesn't matter. God has given you what you require, and be happy with that. So you have to fight sometimes against that. Okay, business is tough. I still have business. I still have customers phoning me. But it's tough. But then again, some other people had it tough when I had it good. So it's just my time. For great strengthening is needed for one who wants to bend his nature to its opposite. Now, we want to use everything spiritual involved with the evil inclination, and chase out the devil, and we want to find the devil around the door and everywhere and so on. But actually the biggest fight is the one in the mirror. We want to fight with the devil, with everything. But actually you have to fight with the one in the mirror more, because he's the toughest one to change. You see, we want to fight spiritual things. But the one in the mirror staring to you and say, I don't want, or I want, and I will not. I will now. Take me there. I feel like eating this now. That's the one you have to struggle. So you have to become strong. Your inner man needs to be fed food, and it needs to be fed all the necessary vitamins to become so strong to overpower this natural man. So these two terms correspond to the two types of strengthening and zeal. To strengthen oneself initially to hold strong to the mitzvot, and the second is to be very courageous. So you can be very strong, but if you have no courage, you can be very strong and no courage, like in the story with Goliath. There were people much stronger, much bigger than David, King David, but they lacked the courage. But he came there, and he might not have been that strong. I believe he was strong, because he fought a bear. He was maybe not as strong as the soldiers, but he was strong. But the thing that he did not lack was courage. And the courage he did not get because he looked at himself and said, I am so good. His courage came from because he knew who he was in God, that he served the God of Israel, that he quoted Psalm 21 to himself, 121 to himself. So in Joshua 1 verse 6, we see exactly this is what God said. Be strong and courageous, Joshua. Telling him twice. Telling him, be strong and courageous. Not just strong or courageous, be strong and courageous. And both comes from God. Behold, Solomon repeatedly exhorted many times this in seeing the evil of laziness and the greatness of the harm resulting from it. So we have to call it laziness. If you have no zeal, and if you don't want, even if you have zeal for a while but you don't want to act on it, it's laziness. It is laziness, and we see Proverbs full of this. So Proverbs 89 says, he who is slack in his work is a brother to the destroyer. So by doing nothing, you just become family of it. You become family of the destroyer. So the evil of laziness and the greatness of the harm resulting from it. He said in Proverbs 24:33, a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, then shall your poverty come as a traveler. It will come to you. Do nothing. Just stand still. Don't worry. It will come to you. Wisdom, if you stand like this, does wisdom come to you? No, he says, otherwise he says, you need to seek her as silver, as a hidden treasure. So in the one sense, he says in Proverbs 2, you listen to his words, accept it, search for wisdom, then you will find it. But in this case, he says, just stand still, just do not, just rest. Poverty will come to you. It will seek you. You don't have to do anything. Poverty will do everything for you. Will take you. So we see the evil that befalls the lazy man does not come all at once. Rather, it comes little by little. The whole story of the frog in the water. Put him in hot water, jumps out, but making a little. The old story, but the truth are still the same. The application is still the same. And the evil inclination still tonight, let's just skip one prayer a week, and then two, and then three, and then one Shabbat, and then, this Shabbat we'll, just slip, and before you know it, little by little, you're actually not keeping Shabbat. Without his knowing it or sensing it, he is pulled from one evil to another until he finds himself sunk in ultimate evil. So you become the brother of the destroyer. This destroyer, and the reason that he's saying this is because if you hold on to the mitzvot, you can say, well, I do a lot of prayers, but then you break the whole Shabbat. Now that breaking that Shabbat destroys everything that you have worked so hard for in that week. Your patience, your management of your anger and so on, where you should have calculated what is the best, where is my zeal, where do I have to use all my energy? Use it on Shabbat. Serve God on Shabbat. double blessing on Shabbat. But now you slip on this side and you actually destroy everything that you've worked so hard for. Behold, at first he's merely diminishing the labor that was proper for him. This draws him not to study the Torah adequately. So we'll just read the Bible. We not just study the Torah. We won't know so much, but just enough. Now today, for instance, people argue about certain truths in the Old Testament, the New Testament. But you can see and you can hear that they actually have no idea of connecting this. They actually have no idea of the truth. But they have something. But they didn't spend the time to actively pursue, is this the truth or not? So what we find the next reaction is due to the lack of study. When he goes further afterwards to study, he will be lacking the requisite understanding. So, in order for you to become a good reader, you have to read a lot. But if you decide I'm not going to read a lot, I'll skip my reading lessons and I won't put all my effort into the reading lessons and so on, will you understand properly what is written in the text? So the reading is actually one part of the test, because there's a comprehension test that needs to come with the reading, because you need to understand what did you read, not that you can read. So you studied the Torah and you got some truths of it, but now you have to understand your comprehension of it. But now, because they refuse to put the zeal and study it, they lack this understanding. But now, the next thing happens. If the evil that befalls him would then end there, his calamity will already be great. But it doesn't end there. It actually goes further. For in his desire to at least explain the section or chapter. So now, I have read something about in this Bible. Now I want to explain it to you, because, I don't know, for some reason, I want to feel I'm a good teacher or pastor, or I'm a good friend, or I want to explain something to you. But you actually have no understanding. So I'm going to argue with you about a certain point in the truth, but you actually have no idea. People say, we shouldn't be keeping the feasts. The law has been done away with. And you ask them, okay, which laws? Okay, they don't actually know all the laws, so they'll give you one that they know. And then you'll ask him, but what is wrong with that law that you've mentioned to me now? Then you'll see that the lack of understanding, they actually don't understand. So the first thing that they do is they twist it. And this is exactly what Ramchal is saying, is he distorts reason by destroying the truth. Now, did you experience this physically today?
Yeah, I did.
You did. You did. People, they are in a corner. They see, instead of keeping quiet and saying, you've got something, I haven't looked at it like that, they can't accept it. So they'll keep on arguing just to make a point, but in that, they are even prepared to destroy the truth for that. They know about Shabbat. Well, let's take the thing, is that we love the Jews. Amen. All the churches, all the Christians says they love the Jews. But keep away from anything that's Jewish. Okay. Tell me exactly, how does that work? It's knowledge without understanding, just twisting the truth. But in the same sense, they've got a talit, they've got a shofar, and they've got a nice menorah on the table while they're saying this to you, and you think to yourself, it's exactly what's happening. It's because they're not seeking and running after the truth. This is being stolen from them, and they've been shaken out this truth. So they know so little, but speak to them a year from now, they'll even know less, because it will disappear. What they know will be disappeared, and and perverting it till he transgresses the decrees and breaches all the fences, even the reason. They'll even twist their own scriptures. And this is what Peter says. I understand that the scriptures of Paul are very difficult to understand. Peter says this. He says, but the unlearned people, they twist this to their own destruction. Now, if it happened in Peter's time, what is happening today? They're taking all. Paul has become the new God of the New Testament. Because it's a lack of understanding. Lack of, Paul was a Jew. He wouldn't have gone against things Jewish. So what does he mean? Let me rather spend time. Let me struggle with this. Let me paddle in this and put effort into it. No, it's easy to not do that. So by laziness, the ceiling decays, and through lowering of the hands, the house leaks. Proverbs 10:18. There's enough things said about laziness and the lack of not doing anything in Proverbs. He thus says, I will be. So this type of person will says, I will eat a bit, or I'll sleep a bit. It is difficult for me to leave my house. I have put off my coat. I shall put it on again. It's very hot outside. It's very cold. It's raining. So you ask a guy, listen, are you coming to shul on Shabbat? Somebody's, invited me for dinner or for lunch. Oh, or, I'm very tired. A hard week this week. Shabbat is to rest. Okay, but, it's not going to take the whole day. You can rest at home. Oh, it's really difficult for me to leave the house. There's something. Oh, I don't know. I haven't done my washing. All the excuses. And all other sorts of excuses and rationalizations that the mouth of a lazy people are full of. Either way, in the meantime, the Torah is abandoned. Because they are looking at what they are doing more worthful than what the Torah means to them. So they'll stay at home and miss a Torah teaching and think that it will gain him more. And man abandons his creator. So he abandoned the service of God, or God's service goes into an idol, and a man then eventually abandons his creator. There are two divisions of zeal. One applies before beginning a deed, and the one after a beginning. That is the two divisions of zeal. The farmer, he's not a good farmer if he goes out and fetches his fruit or his vegetables. But after he's brought them into the store, he can't just leave them there and say, well, I have done my farming. He has to do the rest. Otherwise, everything that he has done is going to be in vain. So before you begin a deed, you have to understand, okay, I'm plucking tomatoes. So what does it mean about tomatoes? I've got a certain time period. I've got a certain things. Tomatoes can go rotten. And this is what the Ramchal is saying is, before beginning a deed, that one not allow your deed, your mitzvah, to become delayed, to become chametz. And that's why God gives us in Pesach, He says, remove all chametz out of your house. In that time, there should be nothing in your house or a deed or anything that can turn sour. Everything needs to be fresh. Everything needs to be done now. Don't let it do for next. So everything that you can serve God, can teach, you have to do it in that time. You have to live. He's given you that feast of 7 days to do it. Same that we've got 7,000 years on this earth to serve God. Now, us 70, 80, maybe 90 years. But we have to. And while we are in the beginning and working towards the end, we have to remove all the chametz from us. For the trait of zeal is very high spiritual level of shelemut, of perfection. So chametz, we want to start removing. It's being perfect. Be holy because I'm holy. Be set apart because I'm set apart. Be perfect because I am perfect. So But he who strengthens himself and takes hold of it as much as he can will in the future world merit to truly attain it. Working now on all your good traits, you would think, I'm struggling so much, I cannot. It just seems the more I think I'm going to be patient, the more things come my way, and I am impatient. And you do not see the fruit. But sometimes you have to now stop and look around you. And sometimes they run around in the house called children. Because that children is maybe your fruit. The struggles that you are going through is what he sees my father doing, so he will also do it. He will also, so you think you have no fruit, so sometimes you have to look around, look up. So do you see a man quick in his work? He shall stand before kings. He shall not stand before lowly men. Proverbs 22:29. So a mitzvah is attributed only to the one who completed it. So you start building a house and it comes halfway. And you abandon what you have built. 10 years later, some guy comes and looks at the house and he finishes the house. Who built the house? Who was the builder of the house? The one that started and never finished, or the one that finished the house? He was the builder of the house. So, for God is not what you started. And it doesn't matter how you started. It's about did you run the race. It's not about did you come first or did you come second, third, fourth, or even last. For God is, did you finish? It was the effort that you put in. Even if you came last, did you put in the effort to at least finish? Yes. Well, that is your reward. The reward is for the effort that you've put in. So we won't overcome everything in our lives. So we to see a man quick in his work. We see examples in the Bible. And Abraham hastened. Rebekah, and she hastened. And the woman in Judges, she hastened. So there are examples in the Bible when there were work for them to be done, and Abraham, the father of Israel, he hastened to do the service of God. So, just like an inner fireness of soul leads to want to act with zeal. So now you have the devotion, now you've got the zeal, so I want to act. So the opposite, outwardly acting with zeal leads to an innerness. So inside, you'll get it outside. Outside, you will get it inside. Knowledge, you'll get zeal. Zeal, you get knowledge. But somewhere you have to start. So what's the answer then, a chicken or the egg? Doesn't matter. If it's a chicken, it will lay an egg. If it's an egg, it will become a chicken. But it has to start somewhere. So it starts with zeal. You'll have the fire. You'll attain the knowledge. If you have the knowledge, get the zeal. And then you'll start aspiring. But it has to start somewhere. And what is the biggest service that we can do towards God? What is our biggest effort and zeal in today's time? Is to give honor to God's name. May His name be blessed. So everything that we do, all the efforts that the most desired in service of God should be, may His name be blessed. Let thy kingdom come. Our Father who art in heaven, let thy... Okay. Just say the prayer for me. Onze Vader wat woon in die hemel, laat U naam geheilig word. Let your name be exalted, be glorified. That's the service, that's in the prayer. Let your name be great, not mine. So even within my zeal, it's not about me, it's about God. So that which may intensify this arousing is looking into the many benefits that the Holy One, blessed be He, does with a man at all moments and times of the great wonders God performs for him from the time of his birth until his final day. So, start looking at all the notes around you and start taking cognizance. Well, there's something telling me. Start picking up. Start counting your blessings. If you start counting your blessings, then you will recognize that you are in enormous debt to God. That the blessings that He has bestowed on you are sometimes much more than you actually deserve. You are indebted to God. Therefore, the only thing that I can do is let His name be blessed. Let His name be exalted. Because, I've been so lack of zeal, but He still blessed me. He blessed me with health. He blessed me with so many things. And therefore, looking into this, it will work against this growing of laziness in us. Because we will realize quickly it's impossible for us to repay God, even with all our actions, for all the blessings. But there's at least some things that we can do. Let Thy name be exalted. The only way that I can do it is bless God by being obedient to His word, His mitzvot. So the factors of diminishing zeals are anything that increases laziness. Now, in today's time, switch on the TV, probably 99.99% of the things on the TV is there, and it's specifically designed there to increase your laziness. Because you would say to yourself, well, I feel so tired, I'm just going to watch this nature program. Let's call it a nice nature program, and then I'll go study a little bit Torah. Guess what? You'll never get to Torah. If you want to study Torah, don't even switch it on. If you want to have valuable time with your family, don't even switch that on, because it's going to steal the time immediately. You can speak of experience. So the greatest of them all is seeking tranquility of the body. So we want, let's look after the body, entertainment and so on. And I don't want to work so hard, so I want to get top pay, top dollars. I want to have a good salary, but I want to work 3 hours a day. I don't want to work very hard. God, give me wisdom in your Torah, but I'll read once a week. But out of that once a week, give me what I need. Make me a scholar in Torah. And then love of bodily enjoyments, because I don't really want to study the Torah and know a lot because I want to connect to God. It's because I want to be able to stand here in front and talk to people, and people need to say, wow, he knows a lot. Because we enjoy being taken up and upheaved and so on. So the Ramchal says the greatest of them all, of all these three. So the greatest is a singular, though he then lists three factors: seeking tranquility, hatred of exertion, love of enjoyment. The reason is all three stem from the same thing. He lists three things, but it's actually one thing. So the factors that diminish this and increases laziness. Here he's explaining exactly what he has written in the book in chapter 1. The Holy One, blessed be He, has put man into a place where the factors which draws him away from the blessed God are numerous. He has placed us in the ocean, in the middle of the ocean, and you have to keep on pedaling. You cannot pedal without an objective, because you'll get tired and you'll sink. You can't stop, because then you'll sink. So you'll have to find a purpose. You'll have to do it with a purpose. And therefore He placed you in this chaos. He placed you everywhere so that these earthly desires, which if He is pulled after them, behold, He draws away and goes even further from the true good. This is one of the factors, and among the strongest of them, as he explains. So God has placed us in this world so that we can connect to Him. We have to pedal with a purpose. But now we don't pedal for purpose to serve God. We pedal for purpose to look after ourselves. So one who habituates himself in these practices is not master over himself. So a person that is not a master over himself is actually he's a slave. To do the opposite of these things when he wishes. Exactly what Paul explained. For his will is already imprisoned. So you are a slave, which actually in prison, in the prison of habit, which has become the second nature to him. And today people are imprisoned by habits, by not so good habits. And then the little picture there, we actually are a bunch of zombies out there, following our own desires, not fighting against these desires, not saying to the man in the mirror, I know that you want this, but I'm not going to give it to you. I am going to go to Shabbat. I am going to pray. I am going to study. You're not going to rule over me. And then he says, Amen. And he walks around and goes to the fridge and opens it and grabs the first. We are slaves to habits. A man needs to realize that he was not placed in this world for tranquility. Adam and Eve, after sinning, you are going to have a good time. Amen. That's what's written there. No. So how can we want opposite to what God has given to Adam and Eve? So we are here on this earth to toil. And we must conduct ourselves as laborers. And we have to say to ourselves, we are day laborers. So there is a boss watching over us. It's taking cognizance of what we are doing, the time that you are spending. We need to understand that we are responsible to a higher authority, accounting every deed of ours. And then we will become like soldiers. We eat swiftly, we sleep irregularly, always ready to engage in battle. You will eat bread and salt, you will drink measured water, you will sleep on the ground, you will live a life of suffering, and you will labor in the Torah. If you do this, you are fortunate and it is good for you. Psalms 128:2. You are fortunate in this world and it is good for you in the world to come. This is the way of the Torah. And it's written in Pirkei Avot 6:4. So I'm going to finish with this. Rabbi Ishmael, his son, says, one who studies Torah in order to teach. So I'm doing something with an action in mind. One who studies the Torah in order to teach will be given the opportunity both to study and to teach. But one who studies in order to practice, so there's a difference between studies and teach and one to practice, will be given the opportunity to study, to teach, to observe, and to practice. So we're asking ourselves, okay, why are we studying the Torah? To really do it, because you need zeal to do the actions. And guess what? Then everything else will be added onto you. But people want to study so that they can be good teachers. No. If you study so that you can do it, then you can become a teacher. You can be one that observes, show how to observe it. You can be one to show all these things. So Rabbi Tzadok says, do not make the Torah into a crown with which to aggrandize yourself. It's a big English word. And not into a spade with which to... The Torah is a tool to fight your evil inclination. It's not to build your intellect. Do you want to get control of your evil inclination? Torah does it for you. Tells you exactly how to. The Bible tells you. Everything tells you. Every word in the Bible tells you how to interact this. So we not using it as an ornament, we must use it as a spade. Hillel says, and one who makes use of this crown of learning passes away. From here you learn that one who benefits from these words of the Torah removes his life from the world. So the more you benefit from using the spade, the more you actually get away from this world. It's exactly what you want. The dependencies from this world. And this we have to use our zeal for. Is for this. And we finish tonight, and then we will continue this weekend with the next chapters in Path of the Just. Yeah, you can just switch off for me. Thanks. Let us stand. Any questions?